The first book, I guess, or one of the first books you wrote was The 5 Second Rule.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when you were 41, you were $800,000 in debt.
That's a lot of money.
Unemployed. You were watching your husband's restaurant business crumble. That's what you're writing in the book. It said, you write, it felt like we had failed at life with no hope of ever escaping the debt. Under the weight of this situation, you found yourself procrastinating and avoiding solving the problems. But then you were like, let's try this 5 second rule. I mean, how did you come up with that? And
The
what
true
is it
story?
exactly?
Okay,
Yeah.
the 5 second rule is a little mindset hack that helps you push through any excuse or any emotion or any feeling that you have so you take action. And the thesis is very simple. Just like food drops on the floor and you have 5 seconds to pick it up, you know,
Right.
blow the dog hair off and then you can eat it. You have 5 seconds to act on an idea before your brain contaminates your will to move. It's that simple. And what happened for me, here's the true story, is, and again, I'm going to jump back and forth between what I knew then and what I know now. Because when you find yourself stuck in life, whether it's crippling grief, which I know you've experienced, or it is all of a sudden the world changes or your job changes or circumstance changes in a relationship and you find yourself single, or you find yourself in a new chapter, or you find yourself as an empty nester, or you find yourself in a situation where you don't like what's happening in your community or the world around you, it is normal to feel stressed about that.
And paralyzed, really,
Yes.
right?
And actually, in the moment, if the issue is big enough, feeling stressed or paralyzed is a sign that you're mentally well, because the response is actually appropriate to the thing that you're dealing with. The issue is that none of us understand that when you get to a point where you're super stressed about something and you start to feel anxious, which is simply just feeling stressed all the time. I mean, anxiety and stress are the same physiological things in your body. I didn't know this at the time when I was 41. I just knew that I had $800,000 in debt, that the bills were piling up on the kitchen counter. I couldn't open them. I didn't have money in the bank anyway. We were struggling to get gas in the tank and food on the table. I hadn't told my parents. I hadn't told my friends. Friends had invested. We're also in a community where we have lots of friends and you're trying to keep up and you don't want people to know. And so I did feel paralyzed. And the thing that's interesting that I really want to underscore for particularly the person that's listening and spending time with us right now, whether this applies to you in your life at this moment or it applies to somebody that you love who is seemingly stuck, is that nobody's actually stuck. A person who's stuck isn't actually paralyzed because you're in deep conflict with yourself. You know when you're not thriving. You know when you're making decisions that are taking your life down the wrong road. Like the hardest person working in a classroom, or the hardest working person in a classroom is not the person getting A's. It's the person that's failing. Because they're struggling all the time. Even if it looks like they're not doing anything on the outside, they're constantly in conflict knowing that they are not reaching their potential, that they're not trying how they can. Same thing is true with health. Someone in your life that you wish that would be healthy, we make the mistake of thinking they're not motivated. That's not true at all. They're in deep conflict with themselves. They know that there are things that they can do. It's not an issue of willpower, it's an issue of skill. And so I think that's an important backdrop because I didn't know any of this. And so you can start to feel like you're the only one that's trapped, that you're the idiot that can't figure this out, that somehow you screwed up, when truly it's not just you, that there are things you can do. And for me, I knew what I needed to do. I'm not an idiot. I knew that if we're that much in debt, Katie, I need to get a job. I could ask for help. I need to get my butt out the front door and go for a walk because all the experts say it's going to make me feel better. I know that drinking half a bottle of bourbon every night is probably not helping the situation. Neither is waking up hungover and then hitting the snooze button 6 times. But you get so stuck in the stress of it, and that keeps you in it. And so what happened, and this is the true story, it was February 2008. And so also the housing crisis going down. And I'm sitting in front of the television. I'm like, that's it, Mel Robbins. Tomorrow morning, woman, it's the new you. Tomorrow morning, you have got to stop drinking. You have got to stop screaming at Chris. It's not like he tried to fail at the restaurant business, you know. You got to call your parents. You got to pick up the phone and look for a job. And by God, woman, when that alarm rings, you cannot lay there like a human pot roast marinating in fear, staring at the ceiling. You have got to get your butt out of bed and get those kids on the bus. And all of a sudden, this rocket ship launches across the television screen. And it gave me this crazy idea. It was like a sign from, it's a sign from God. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm rings, Mel, you are going to launch yourself out of bed like a rocket ship. You're going to move so fast, you're not going to be in that bed when that anxiety hits. Now, it could have been the 4 bourbon Manhattans that gave me that idea, because I was drinking an awful lot back then. And it sounds kind of stupid.
By the way.
Yeah, right? They're delicious, especially this time of year. So, but it sounds stupid. So the next morning, the alarm rang. And that's when I saw something that I'd never seen before. And once you embrace what I'm about to share with you, you will never look at life the same again. There is a 5-second window that defines your whole life. It determines how much money you make. It determines how healthy you are. It determines what kind of relationship you have with your kids and with your parents and with your loved ones. It's this 5-second window between knowing what you need to do and actually doing it. There's this moment of hesitation that we all have in the small moments in life, where you have this instinct that you should pick up the phone or start the conversation or get off the couch and go to the gym. And instead of actually doing it, we make this fatal mistake where we hesitate and then we stop and think about how we feel about doing it. And so that morning, Tuesday morning, February 2008, the alarm rings, and I immediately remember that dumb idea to launch out of bed. And I stop and think, do I feel like getting out of bed? And I'm like, it's dark, it's cold, it's winter in Massachusetts. How the hell is this going to help? I'm $800,000 in debt. I don't want to get out of bed. And I start reaching for the snooze button because it was a habit. And a habit's just a pattern. And for whatever reason, I just started counting backwards that morning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I stood up. And it struck me, like I was kind of like, that's strange. And I was in such a state of desperation that I just dismissed my kind of pragmatic, cynical side. And I thought, what if this is a sign from God? What if this is a magic trip? What if this works? And so I made myself a promise. I said, any moment that I have today where I know what I could do, but I don't feel like it, I'm just going to count backwards and see what happens. And that was the beginning of an entirely new life. I walked into the kitchen and my husband was standing there and he had the fridge open, Katie, and he was looking for breakfast. And yeah, that thing happens where you see somebody you love and you just want to kill them. You know how that happens? And so I see Chris, this poor guy.
I thought you were going to say, and you just feel so bad that they don't have anything to eat and you want to take care of them.
No, because here's the thing. When you're in a position in your life where you're not happy, it's so much easier to be angry than it is to be afraid. And the truth is, I was scared. I was scared because I could see that my behavior was not going to help me fix this. I could see how Chris was struggling. I could see that our kids were picking up on this and it was affecting them. And I was scared. And so I see him, but, I just wanted to kill him because it's easier to kind of point the finger and blame other people. But my big message, particularly with this let them theory, is that there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you, always. The power is within you and your response to any situation. That's what defines you, and that's what determines whether or not your life is going to change and move in a different course, or whether or not you're going to continue to allow your feelings and your stress and your emotions to drive how you show up in life. And so I just counted backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because the truth is I love Chris. I don't want to be screaming at him. And as I counted backwards, I just was able to settle myself and speak from a place of my values. I see the phone, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm picking up the phone and I'm starting to tell people and ask for help and starting to network. I need a job, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm grabbing my shoes and going out the door. And one 5-second move at a time, two things happen. Number one, I learned a skill that everybody in life needs to know, that anybody in life can learn. It is the skill that makes you happy and successful. It is the skill that will make you proud of yourself. And that skill is learning how to take action no matter how you feel. And you can count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And what I know now, based on the fact that this is spread around the world, it's used in clinical settings. It's really effective for OCD, PTSD. Therapists and psychologists use it with anxiety. It works with kids. We know of more than 1,000 people who have taken the time to write to us who have stopped themselves from attempting suicide by counting backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and reaching out for help. I mean, this thing is remarkable because your life doesn't change by thinking about it. Your life changes by doing something about it. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, what it does is it cuts through all of the noise and the emotion and the fear and the habits, and it directs you to take action. And the reason why it works is because when you stop and you start to think, do I want to go to the gym? Do I now want to go to the gym? I don't really feel like going to the gym. If you start to think about something for more than 5 seconds, and psychologists call this a bias towards thinking, you drift into the part of the brain where all of your default patterns and your default way of talking to yourself is stored. This is where all of your bad habits are. It's where you start to move towards what feels easy naturally instead
to
of
rationalize,
yeah,
right?
Exactly, or ruminate. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 helps you push toward what feels hard, and it also, counting backwards, this is what's fascinating about it now that we've researched this extensively with some of the world's leading neuroscientists and psychologists. Counting backwards is an intentional action. When you first start doing it, it requires focus. So what you're doing is you're interrupting your mind from going to default or a subconscious pattern, and you're bringing your prefrontal cortex online. And
Your
that's
executive functioning.
correct.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the brain that you need in order to take a new action or learn new behavior or control your response. It's what puts you in charge of yourself. That's what it's doing. And the super nifty part of it is the second you start counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you've actually taken the first action. It's like that first domino that falls that hits the second domino, 5, 4. By the time the second domino is falling to the third, it can knock over something 10 times its size because now you have inertia and momentum on your side. And that's why this thing works. And so one reason why I've gotten to where I am is because, and it hasn't been glamorous, it's been grueling. There is nothing kind of unique about my path to success. What you're seeing now is 15 years of boring, tedious, pain in the ass reps. Just like going to the gym and lifting a weight. That is not glamorous. It is not interesting. It's not fun. It is what gets you the result. And so I didn't do anything special. I got out of bed on the days I don't feel like it. I put in the work. I kept trying. I picked myself up on those days where I would watch you and go, when is Katie Couric going to notice that I'm doing something? When is somebody going to talk about the 5-second rule book? It was the 5th most read book of Amazon in 2017. It's the number one self-published audiobook in history. Why is nobody talking about this? And I would say to myself, and I need you as you're listening to me and Katie today, to really embrace what I'm about to tell you. And it's that if it's not happening, it's not meant to happen yet. That if you are willing to put your head down and be a good person and do the boring, grueling work, which is simply taking one more step forward today, it's simply showing up and being a little bit better person than you were yesterday. That's all it is. And if you give up your timeline, I promise you, your life will lead you exactly where you're meant to go, and it will be bigger and different and more amazing because that's how it works for everybody.